6:03, so I'm calling the meeting to order. We'll start with the consent agenda. If there's no questions or concerns with the previous minutes, I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll make the motion.
Devin made the motion. Akua?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, for the policies, we got one on the first, or we got two on the first read. Is there any questions or concerns on those? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept those first reads.
I'll make a motion.
Devin made the motion. Akua?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Devin? I'm an aye. Then on the second read, there's a bunch of those there. Is there any questions on those? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll make a motion.
Devin made the motion. Josh?
Aye.
Akua?
Aye.
I'm an aye. And then there's one informational one. Okay. Agenda preview and prioritization. Do we need anything prioritized?
No.
Okay, perfect.
Order is good.
All right, we'll go right to recognition of visitors. I know we have a few here. Any public comment? No?
I'm not sure when it's appropriate for why I'm here. Do you want me to just?
Sure.
Okay. So, Ashley, I'm Shauna Lovelett, with the Boosters, and Ashley Lange is with me as well. We are just here to talk about Snack Shack. We've been kind of in process, or I don't know if in process is the right word, but it's been in discussion at least since April. I have this sketch that was the sketch that the Boosters came up with. I don't know if you want to send that around for anybody interested. There's 8 copies there. So originally that was sent in April. Vern had gotten a bid from CK Construction. And then it's kind of stalled out a little bit from there. So we just want to see how we can move it forward, what needs to be done. I understand in conversations with Morgan that it needs to go out in a bid process. So how can we get that bid process started? I had reached out to a contractor to do a quote for me in hopes of bringing it tonight, but in understanding better the process of the bidding, I didn't want him to waste his time if it's gotta go out to public bid. So, we just really wanna see how we can move this forward. You know, unfortunately, it had to be taken down, and the understanding was, when it was taken down, that something would go back. We've got $13,000 earmarked that the Boosters raised for this specifically. So, just coming here tonight to understand better the direction, and how we can move it forward. And, you know, most importantly, is the just, you know, are you guys willing to put money to put this back? You know, because
Right.
it's a 400, this design is 416 square feet. It includes bathrooms. It's smaller than the original footprint, but still includes bathrooms and a storage space and a snack shack space. We have, the utilities are there, ready to go. The fixtures were kept. My understanding is that they're in storage. I haven't personally seen them, but that's my understanding from Michael. Anthony, I don't know if you understand that as well. My question is, the prior snack shack was winterized. It was supposed to have been winterized every year, you know. Is that the same direction? Those are kind of questions that would have to be vetted out. Is that the same direction that we want to go with a seasonal building that needs to be winterized? Does it have to be something where it's maybe heated minimally to keep it, you know, at least good? But I don't think, obviously, we've got this one quote from CK Construction that was $116,000. I mean, that's over $250 a square foot, which you can, housing costs are anywhere between $250,000 and $300,000, and this is, to my mind, much less than, you're not putting a house back there, right? So, I guess that's why we're here, just to have this conversation and see what direction to go.
Okay, I'll talk it over with Lynn and Morgan, and we'll get
Well,
back to you on
I
that.
wonder if it would help if
Have
Morgan,
more conversation than just on that back.
yeah,
because
well,
that's been a
I
lot
wonder
of
if Morgan can talk about the RFP, because what that did was trigger the need to put that out for bid. Can you talk a little bit
Correct,
about that?
so, anything that is construction related that's likely to be over $40,000 has to go out to bid. We can request bids from people we know who might be interested. We can also advertise it. We would likely do both. I talked a little bit on email with Shauna today about the likely length of the process. Normally, we could turn a bid around in probably 6 weeks and bring it to you, kind of in the best case scenario. We know that's would bring us to end of December, and we're not gonna start a construction project in January, so we'll talk about the timing. We would want bids to come back and be able to move quickly enough to lock in a price on that. The bid that Vern got is what kind of tipped us to what the actual cost was gonna be for this. The hope is that it would come in for less than that. We've heard that there are people who are interested in donating time, which would be great. We are gonna recommend to you as the board that we have a contract with one person, and so if there's somebody in the community who's willing to rally those folks, presumably they would come in with the lowest bid. We've had a little miscommunication, I'd say, on the floor plans, I think, with what we've seen today and the conversations today. I think we can get pretty close to coming up with an RFP that will be detailed enough that when you get hopefully 3 bids back, everyone's kind of bidding on the same thing. And that's really I think the main concern in going through that process is that you're not in a place where somebody comes in and says, well, I can do it for this, and you get down the road and you've got another contractor in town who's bad-mouthing the project because
Do you
they had
already
bid something
vote on
totally
this?
different.
Did we already vote on this, so we're gonna go forward with that?
Yes, we did. That's why
Yep.
I'm a little frustrated,
Yeah.
because we talked
Yep.
about this in the
But we gotta
spring,
wait, yeah, cause
and nothing's happened.
yeah, okay.
And then in terms of the price for the board, you know what the boosters have. We don't yet know what the bid is gonna come in at. I'm not feeling a huge terror if we're coming in at, the $100,000 mark. Ideally, we would, we may wanna talk about that when we get to your budget conversation next month, if you wanna put something into the actual operating fund for that as opposed to capital reserves, which is, I assume, the other pot of money you'd be interested in using.
Yeah. Makes sense. Did that help you at all?
It did. So what would the action steps be going forward?
So I think we can take the RFP that we used for the Sugar House in Cold Hollow. I will try to flesh that out with Vern, but I think you all and Michael Wolf are gonna need to weigh in, one, on what we have, and two, if, what we think is, we being Vern, thinks is appropriate in terms of
Yeah.
insulation and finishes is what you're interested in.
Yeah, I don't think, I think, I'm gonna speak, but you can correct me. I think we would obviously defer to you guys on whether it's insulated or not insulated, or whether it needs to be seasonal or not seasonal. I think, our opinion would come more with making this shack part of it functional for the boosters to work in there, and, I think it's important to have bathrooms. I've had a number of schools come in, being down at the soccer field, and be like, what happened to your, what happened to the bathrooms, what happened to your snack shack, and, so I think, it's definitely a benefit to have those bathrooms there. Obviously, portalettes are usable, but how much do you spend on portalette rental, each season as well?
Yep.
Okay, so you'll work with Vern, or someone will work with Vern on the RFP, and then maybe we can set up a time to review that and see if there's any
Yep.
input you need from us.
Yep, and should that be you or
Yeah, I
Ashley
think
or
it can be
Amy?
for now.
Okay.
And then I can bring it back to whoever I need to
Yep.
or communicate that way. Okay. Is it reasonable, like, I know you're getting into budget stuff, is it reasonable a couple of weeks?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't expect Vern will be in this week, but certainly by next
Yeah, he
week.
said he was on vacation, so, okay.
Next week is
And it's
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, so. Probably second week of December-ish?
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else, Shauna? Anything else?
Yeah,
No?
no, I think
Okay.
that's, you're good?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
Just wanted to put an input too.
Sure.
Okay, so there's something that happened at the school today.
Can I just give a point of order about public comment? We have a chain of command policy, and we're not at the board yet. I'm working with you right now on that.
Well, I want the board to know as well.
The-
And it's just convenient that they had one tonight.
But the board would come after my part. If you're not satisfied with my part, then it goes to the board. It's right in our
Shouldn't the board
agenda.
know about it?
The board does not know at this point. If you have a complaint about a personnel, it goes through me first, and then you would reach out to Mort
Okay, so
if you're not satisfied
if I could
at
please,
that
so,
level.
Would you like to see some pictures?
No, oh, yeah. There's a chain it has to go through, and then if the pictures are something that we need to see, then we'll see them, if not.
so don't mind me asking, so far as tonight goes, this has nothing to do with my daughter, that's why I'm here. If I understood you correctly. Okay, so it'll be a whole different meeting or?
Yeah, it'll be a whole different meeting, yes.
Okay.
Do you wanna see
Yeah.
the marks?
Can we do it
No, I don't.
outside of the board meeting? Can
Yeah.
you send those to
Yeah.
me?
Okay, well, I appreciate your time,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
though, yeah.
okay. I don't know if he goes being rude or walking, I also go to work, so.
Anything else, you guys?
No, I would like to be heard tonight.
You can, as long as it's something besides that. I mean, there's a chain you have to go through with that, unfortunately. It's just, this is the rules.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Okay, ready for school spotlight.
Okay. Courtney has a slideshow she's gonna put up, and I have Lori McGraw with me, who is also gonna talk about what we're bringing tonight. So Lori is both the assistant principal and one of our math specialists. I'm gonna just give to the board a couple of different things that I will reference. So the thing that I want to talk about tonight is we brought some data, and what I'd like to talk about is some growth data that we have seen over time with our students in academics largely. I'm also going to share with you a little bit of our behavior data, which is much more difficult to share or explain, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get to that section. So, okay. So I'm going to show you two different charts. This one is, both are STAR data at the state benchmark. This one is in reading, the next one will be in math. And what we're showing is a change in proficiency over time from the fall of 2021 to the fall of 2025. Want to talk about the colors and everything else?
Yeah, so we combined, there's an on level and above level, so sometimes when you see STAR data, there's 4 colors. This one has 3 because we combined the on level and above level. And you can just see that the green over time, those are the students that are proficient, and it has grown each year. It's leveled out a little bit in literacy last year, this year. The yellow are the students that are marked that should receive some intervention. And then the red are the students that are receiving intervention and most likely some IEP services of some sort, some you know, on a plan of some sort that way. And you can see how the green has been increasing. The yellow's been somewhat adjusting through there, and the red has definitely decreased over time. And this is our math data similarly. This is all fall data. This is at the beginning of the school year. There's a window at the beginning of the school year where all the schools take start. And coming out of COVID, so fall 21-22 would have been when we were back full-time. Not, the year prior was when we were part-time part of the year and then full-time. And in 21-22, we were really still focused a lot on our literacy. And so we started out with very low math, you know, math proficiency, and over time it's been growing through a lot of things that we put in place. Go to the next slide.
So there's a number of different structures that we put in place. I'd like to say that this was like a perfect science experiment where we had just one variable at a time, but didn't have time for that. And certainly, you know, there was a lot of things that we can attribute some growth to. A few of those things that really stand out we wanted to highlight. So one of the things that we've done is really leveraged our instructional staff in a teaming capacity. So our teaming for instruction and planning, we have a large chunk of time on Tuesdays, an hour during the day, and then another 45 minutes at the end of the day, because this is our early release day. And that's consistent every single Tuesday. Like, this is sacred time. What that planning time looks like, though, is really a team approach. So it's the classroom teacher or teachers, depending on how many teachers there are per grade level, the instructional specialists or interventionists, because our interventionists are not used for just intervention. They're really used as instructional specialists because they inform both first instruction all the way through level 4, if you're thinking about MTSS having multiple levels or layers of instruction for students. And during that time, there's a lot of, we have a real protocol. So teachers are looking at data to start with to inform their instruction, and then they're planning their instruction. We have documents that we have created online that teachers are always entering information into. And then from there, they plan their groups, their instructional groups, as well as their intervention groups. And then the block of time in the afternoon is more largely focused on intervention. Do you want to speak to being, you know, as a teacher in
Yeah,
that
well,
capacity?
I think, like, so this room's a great example. So this is a 4th grade class, and there's about 21 kids in here. And I work with Vivian Marlowe, and I work in this room for math, and I'm in here really the whole math block. And so we team teach this room, and we're able to break out into smaller groups for some of the things and be back together for other things for whole group instruction. And we plan assessments and we do all that work together so that we can accommodate having some bigger, larger class sizes, but still give kids small group and instruction as it's needed. And it gives me the chance as a math, you know, having math specialty to really work with Vivian, and we do all our plans together. Every piece of math is planned together, and we do that on Tuesdays. So it's on a rotation, so I'm also in other classrooms, obviously, during the day, but it does give us a chance to really kind of look carefully at our programming and really make some really important choices for the kids, so.
It's not a lot of instruction or instructional planning that happens individually. It's really all happening at some kind of team level. And so the interventionist, we do it on a waterfall, so 1 week is literacy for a grade level, and the following, and they'll plan for 2 weeks, because the following week is a Tuesday. If we happen to like, this time is so sacred, if we happen to miss a Tuesday, a couple of times we've adjusted our Wednesday to look more like a Tuesday, so that we could get that instructional planning time in. We also try to be really strategic about what the interventionists or the specialists are doing when it is intervention at level 3 or level 4, or when they are co-teaching with a classroom teacher. So really differentiating what that instruction looks like for kids. Some of the other things that I think have really, or we think have really contributed, we have this, what we call this protected hour first thing in the morning. And it's kind of a soft start to the day. But I don't really like that term because this is a pretty, also a very strategic time of day. So students they arrive at school, they have breakfast in the classroom, they have morning meeting, and then they have their leader and me lesson. And so that takes up the first hour of the day. For some people, and probably in the very beginning, we may have had some teachers who thought like this, there's so much to teach. How can we contribute, take this amount of time to do morning meeting, leader and me? I don't think there's a single person in this building now that would argue that that is not one of the most protected times of day. We do a lot of check-ins with kids at that point, a lot of check-ins with kids, with multiple adults in the building. It's an opportunity for a lot of skill building during morning meeting. The leader and me lessons are, an opportunity to help to set some of those foundational skills that the kids just take throughout the day and then now years. And I we were just talking about it in a staff meeting today because I presented some similar data, and the teachers were talking about the level of language that kids are consistently using now that is problem-solving language, that is proactive language. They're using the planning room, they're using at recess with each other, that they're using when they were processing. Like Lori does a lot of processing with students if there are some behaviors that's not being dealt with in the planning room.
Yeah, and now that the students that have done Leader and Me for 3 or 4 years, when I'm processing with 4th or 5th graders now after the fact, they are much more empathetic to the situation. They're much more readily admitting if they've done something that may have, upset or harmed someone else, and it's just a better conversation, and they really can then look for, think and plan ahead a little bit on how to do something different next time. There's a lot of the denial pieces, like I didn't do it, it wasn't me, that's kind of dissipated, so.
Yeah. Anything else about the academic pieces? No, I think that's good. Okay. The next part is behavior data and student supports. So this is definitely, can you just go back? Yep. So this is definitely harder data to present or quantify to really tell a picture. So we don't have a real clear way of collecting data. Fortunately, I have a member of our student support team who has put in a tremendous amount of legwork in capturing data across our years. So a lot of which I can't really share because it's too telling of individual students or cohorts of students. But the kinds of data that we have collected over time are individual names of students who have had some levels of plans, received different levels of counseling. We've done that by year. We have major behaviors that have been captured by month and by year and by cohort of student for the last 5 or 6 years. We have, she has just captured it in lots and lots of different ways. And we also have made some shifts from year to year of what majors look like, major behaviors. So major behaviors could be elopement, they could be aggression, they could be chronic minors. So a chronic minor is if a student receives 5 minors, which teachers collect in the classroom. That kind of equates to a major. That just means that they've had to address a similar behavior multiple times in the classroom. And so we count that as a major. It could be elopement. It could be elopement is if a student leaves the building or the classroom without permission. So sometimes it could be a student literally leaving the building and going, running around outside. It could be walking out of the classroom and into the hallway. Because they're angry or upset or something, So there's sort of a spectrum of that. The data is very difficult to show a true picture of how things have sort of shifted over time. One more thing before you show that. So we have spent, and I'm gonna show you some data first, and then I'll talk more about some of the things that we put in place. But I think one of the things to know is that we have spent a lot of time trying to identify what major behaviors are, and we capture all major behaviors. And teachers are very good about reporting everything. It doesn't mean everything is reported, but teachers are really good about reporting things. So that is something that we've, really tried to put in place, and we do that electronically. So, Court, if you want to show the next slide. So this is going to show you total majors in a school year over the course of time, the last 4 years. You'll see in 23-24, there was obviously this huge spike with level 3, 4. So let me explain what level 1 and 2 is and level 3 and 4. So if you're thinking about MTSS as having like a 5-layer, 5-level system, level 1 is first instruction, level 2 is double dose, level 3 would be some form of intervention, level 4 would be a much higher form of intervention, level 5 would, in this case, be our alternative programs like STEPS or RISE. Okay. So we have students who, we've disaggregated some of this data, so students who have some kind of level 3 and or 4 support. Typically, they're the students who have some kind of plan. They have multiple layers of support, so they could be seeing our counselor or we have some students who see both of our counselors every day of the week and have some level of support in order to support them with skill building, social skill building. It's not all just like bad behavior, misbehavior. It could be like levels of skill building that kids need to have. In 23-24, we had some students that joined us, and we needed to really attend to those behaviors. So I did attach those majors by month over on the right-hand side, because obviously that really stands out. And if you look at September and October, there were some pretty significant majors there. And then by November, December, it really goes down. When you think about multi-tiered systems of support, we have to put things in place to really support students academically and socially, emotionally, and behaviorally, and those aren't instant. They take time. We can't say, automatically we want a student to be on an IEP or we want an evaluation. Like, we are really obligated to put pieces in place. And so that can look like counseling, that can look like, like we don't even go to, straight to one-on-one. Like, it's layers of support with counseling. It could be multiple layers of support with counseling. It could be multiple check-ins. It could be a student support plan. It could be with our school-based behavior consultant, who is more of a middle-of-the-road level 3, or it could be that we reach out to a behavior specialist so that we have a higher level of plan. Do you want to go to the next? So this is pulling some behaviors from 4 of the more major ones. So frequency of chronic minors going down or changing over time, and again just showing the difference between the level 1 and 2, which is the majority of our population.
Yeah, so like the level 1 and 2 numbers would be number of students. We're talking about the majority, so like 130 kids.
Yep.
Or whatever. And then there's a pocket of kids that have received the extra attention, the extra services that they even if they're not, like Danielle was saying today, like even if they've exited that kind of support, they stay in that, they still are tracked in that extra band, so there's, you know, maybe 20, 30, but it's the majority of kids are in the blue band.
Yep.
And so you can see the difference between students that are in that 1 and 2 that we're able to like serve that way through our universal systems.
When you look at something like aggression, aggression isn't necessarily like a fist fight. It could be, you know, it would look very different from a kindergartner than it would perhaps a 5th grader. So with a kindergartner, it could be, you know, that they're reaching out and maybe they're hitting, maybe they have a one-on-one and they're, you know, aggressing toward that adult, which could look like slapping them, which would be very different if it was, you know, 2 5th graders having a fist fight in the classroom or on the playground or something, right? So, like, that is not the level of behavior that this aggression is showing. This is not showing like, it's what we are seeing is our younger students who are coming to us who have not had experiences with school or with larger peer groups, who are in that place, just like with academics, needing to learn how to interact appropriately with classmates and with expectations at school, and things can just be very different. So some of the things that we've put in place over time, one of the things that we tackled first was creating school-wide expectations. That was a lot. Took a little break during COVID and kind of came back to it. We spent a lot of time putting together our continuum of care. That's our MTSS, so we have one for instruction and one for student supports. As things came up, we put systems in place. So at one point, we created something called the intensive care protocol, and this was if we had students that came to us that it felt like there was really sort of in crisis or with an intense behavior, how were we going to respond to that? You know, and so just created kind of a protocol of how we were going to respond to that, which could include involving NCSS, having, you know, conversations with parents, bringing in some SU personnel to kind of help us inform how to best support kids. Couple of handouts I gave you, documents that we created that show, you know, interventions and assessments, sort of a checklist that we created, a really lengthy checklist to help us make some decisions about supporting students. And then levels of counseling and social skill building. So with our counselors, also looking at counseling from a multi-tiered level of supports. So maybe some students see a counselor once a week for just some, you know, as a check-in. And then there's other students that see a counselor twice a day in a skill building group, 5 days a week. Our behavior team, the need for our behavior team. So we have a school-based behavior consultant through NCSS. We have our school social worker, a school counselor, and our planning room coordinator. We meet weekly, every Tuesday for an hour, and we review behavior data and look at student support plans. And that behavior data helps us to inform what kids need. So we have been able to capture students a whole lot sooner and support them because we're not putting out fires like we, you know, were when we came back from COVID. And then, you know, we record pretty much everything. So, you know, sometimes I always feel like it's very quiet here and it's very calm here, and then how do we have some majors? But I think it's also the level of what we are capturing. Like, we just try to capture everything, so it gives us information to best help kids. So.
I just want to applaud the growth data. I know that Kelly shared it, but also I just want to take a moment to, can you go back to the slides?
Academic?
Yeah. It's huge. The state benchmark proficiency on STAR is quite high. It is higher than what the benchmark is. We call it the district benchmark, but it's actually from Renaissance what their benchmark is for the STAR. So that growth data, as good as it looks there, it's even steeper when you look at what the STAR the Renaissance benchmark is. So all of what Kelly just shared has really attributed to the work that her and her staff have done, have attributed to that accelerated growth over this period of time, so.
And if you go in Kelly's office, there's a whole wall that has all
Yeah.
the June, September, October, and, yeah, it's pretty closely.
I was just there yesterday. They're looking so closely at data, like you said, by grade level across each of the years or testing periods. But then it's also set up so that you could track the same kids across. So from K
From
to
year to
1
year.
to 2 to 3,
Yeah.
if you look at it another way, so.
And we really try to use the data, like, not just admire it or lament over it, you know, but like, what's it telling us?
There's
What's
a
the
healthy dose
story?
of both.
Yes, there is a
Healthy
healthy
dose of
dose.
both.
Yeah, so what's the story? That's what we're always asking. Yep.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Will we have another spotlight tonight?
I believe is Michelle on there?
Yeah, she's on.
Okay.
Good to go?
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me tonight. I think that for the SU members, this may be something of a repeat. If there's anybody, I can't tell exactly who's there, but.
Michelle, can you maybe
This.
introduce yourself if you could?
I'm sorry, yes. I'm Michelle Irish. I'm the director for Education Quality in Brooklyn Northeast. And I hold a lot of different roles and wear a lot of different hats. One of the hats that I wear is coordinating our family engagement team, and a portion of that is attendance, which is what I've been asked to come and talk to you about tonight. So that is, I have a slide presentation. Let's get that started. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna put it in slideshow mode. Okay. So again, I am here tonight to talk about our family engagement team on one hand and really focusing on the attendance work that they are engaged in right now and all of us are engaged in right now. So this is our district-wide team. So you'll see the NMB members are on the left-hand side. Amy Jarvis is at Sheldon Elementary. Courtney Scar is both the school counselor and family engagement at Montgomery. Derek Lewis is at the same school counselor and family engagement at Bakersfield. Sarah Fortman is a school counselor and family engagement at Berkshire. And then on the ER side, we've got Aaron Durbridge at the high school. Middle and high school. Janessa Higgs is the school counselor and family engagement at the elementary school. Melanie Gross is family engagement coordinator at Richford Elementary School, and Taylor Soul is the family engagement coordinator at Richford Junior Senior High School. She also teaches a piece of health in addition to her other roles. So I wanted to give you kind of a synopsis of the duties and responsibilities across all of these members. So they're not all the same in every building. Obviously, some people hold a little bit of a different mix of roles, but they all touch on a lot of these pieces. So a large portion of their work is focused on attendance. They do some weekly attendance tracking and notification, family and student supports, intervention planning, and home visits, all related to kind of attendance and supporting students coming to school. They coordinate and participate in a lot of the behavior support team meetings or student support team meetings in schools. They also sometimes participate in or organize the coordinated service plan meetings, which are meetings that bring together a number of the services in our region through whether it's CCF and NCFS, the counseling service. And so they hold a lot of those meetings. They're also the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Liaisons, so they're identifying and referring students to me for eligibility. They're often supporting transportation needs that come up and supporting those families by connecting them to resources that they might need around housing, clothing, medical and mental health care, a whole variety of economic services. They do outreach coordination and event planning. One of the events you may have recently heard about is our winter clothing drive. We've had Melanie from Richford Elementary and Aaron from Enosburg High School, Middle High School, have really spearheaded that effort where we held a drive to collect and then give away winter clothing. We had our first event last Saturday at the Richford Town Hall, and we have another one this Saturday at the Opera House. And that was, I didn't think to count the number of people that came through the door, but we gave away a lot of ski pants and boots and mittens and hats and jackets and warm clothes to a lot of people that needed it. So it was really fantastic. And we invited all community members. It didn't matter age or size or anything like that. They also work to coordinate with DCF, something called educational stability, when students are moved from maybe one home to from their home to a foster home. Maintaining where they go to school is really important, so being able to keep them in our school or making best interest determinations to decide which school is the best option for them. So they do a lot of that work. The school counselors in particular do a lot of social emotional skills development. They're engaged in whole class instruction as well as one-on-one small group intervention. They're doing one-on-one counseling. They're often doing 504 case management for kids with disabilities or not in special education. And there's also a number of them who are working on family and caregiver communications through their school newsletter, their lobby slides, social media posts, things like that. So there's a kind of a wide variety of events and activities that they're all holding. One of the things I wanted to kind of just orient you to tonight is the concept of chronic absenteeism. We in the state and in the nation, actually, we're shifting from an old truancy model, which was very much based on, compliance and rules and relying on legal and administrative solutions that we've had in the past, to a more chronic absence definition, which is looking at all absences, whether they're excused or unexcused, really looking at the impact of those missed days and using more positive and community-based strategies to help students attend school. And the definition of chronic absence is missing 10% or more of the school year, which is only 2 days per month if you were to average it out. And so that's really not a lot of school. When you start adding it up, it doesn't seem like a lot at the beginning, but then when you add it up, it does add up to a lot of days and a lot of missed instruction. One of the things we are looking at in addressing chronic absence is really looking at trying to improve graduation rates, increasing academic achievement, and really giving kids the best chance at school and beyond. We know that attendance is important both at school and in our work life, and so we want to be teaching those skills and habits at early ages. We also know that kids who miss a lot of school in the pre-K and K grades are less likely to be reading on grade level by 3rd grade. That is something that I think has oftentimes been missing in our messaging when we're talking about the importance of coming to school. I think there's a lot of perceptions out there that school doesn't count as much or it's not as important when they're little, and it's okay to, take long vacations or be away from school, taking mental health days, things like that. And what happens is we end up with kids who are not able to achieve the way we'd like them to because of that missed instruction. Instruction has changed a lot in the last, I would say at least 5 years, maybe a decade. And I think what Kelly and Lori's presentation kind of spoke to that a little bit. The way we're delivering instruction now is much more interactive. It's much more, kids are collaborating more, they're problem solving together, they're doing things, and that's not stuff you can do and make up if you've missed school. So once you've missed that instruction, you've really missed the opportunity to have those interactions. And it's not like when I was a kid and I'd miss a day or two and my teachers could put together a packet and my mom would go pick it up at the office and I'd do that packet before I came back to school. We can't do that anymore. That's really not the way we're delivering instruction, and it's not a meaningful way for kids to participate. So some shifts in practices. You're going to hear again about this multi-tiered system of supports that Kelly and Lori talked a lot about. And we think of that in terms of absences as well. So tracking absences is also a function of how kids are doing in school. If they're missing a lot of school, the reasons for that missing that school could be academic related, they could be behavioral related, they could be mental health related. So we're looking at kind of identifying the root cause and supporting kids at that level. And we have done some revision to our attendance protocols. Some of you may have seen the work that came out this summer in a shift in our school handbooks, where we now have a definition for what's an excused versus an unexcused absence. We are asking parents to identify the reason for the absence and documenting it that way. And also looking for medical documentation when kids are out for more than a couple of days. So if we have a protocol in place that if a student is, out 2 days, on the third day, they really need to check in with a medical professional, whether it's their pediatrician or even the school nurse sometimes can serve in that capacity to check to see, should the student still be home and treating at home, or is it time for them to come back to school? After COVID, we got into a lot of, I don't know if it was bad habit or just some we've lost some of our messaging around the importance of coming to school. And so there's a lot of absences that I think have just been from lack of attention to the need to be in school.
I think the messaging is the opposite of what it was during COVID, where we had to tell kids they couldn't come to school because of exposures and symptoms.
Right.
So.
And so there was a period of time, and I think that rightfully so, it was dangerous for us to have sick people in school. And so we asked them to stay home for a lot longer than we do now and we do before. So we're getting back to sort of, it's okay to have the sniffles, it's okay to, to not to have a headache or, things like that we can kind of push through. It's different than it was then, and we're trying to rewrite that messaging and trying to change the shift the time. Another thing that we are engaging in different ways in different schools is this concept of school-based attendance teams. And the idea is that there's a multidisciplinary team of folks who represent multiple functions. So it could be a nurse, it could be family engagement, could be a school counselor, the principal, assistant principals are kind of sitting on these teams, really identifying what's the data that we're seeing, when we look at individual students, what's the root cause, and how can we remove some of the barriers that are causing the attendance issue. And there's a variety of different places that can come from. It can come from medical. We have recently engaged in some of our community medical practices in a bi-directional consent form that parents can fill out to enable us to give educational information to physicians and for the physicians to give medical information to us so we can plan together and really work together to help support students in a better way. There are sometimes mental health issues that are causing some of those absences, and then there's times when it's really academic related. Kids are finding school hard. They're not able to read on grade level. They don't want to be in school, and so they're finding reasons to miss school to really escape that or avoid it. And we're using some asset-based positive reinforcement intervention. Looking at, I know that some of the schools, I think Kelly's, they have a program where they've instituted with a number of kids who sort of have an absentee, a chronic absence problem, a punch card. And so every day that they're on time or every day that they're in school, they get a punch. And after so many punches, they get some kind of reinforcement. And that really has helped, I think, to drive the students' desire to be in school, which helps make it easier for the parents to get them to school. So it's an intervention that I think works for both. I also love to tell the story that I heard from Richford High School last year that they had instituted a advisory challenge for attendance, and so the advisories with the best attendance won some kind of prize. And there was a student who was riding around town on his electric scooter going to collect the friends of his that weren't in school that day so they could boost their attendance rates and their advisory. So I think that's a really natural kind of support, and it was student driven, and I don't think it was something any of us really predicted would happen, but it was a great intervention, and it was I think it was a really positive outcome. Here are some of our chronic absence rates by school. I know it might be a little small, but you can see the darker blue bar is from last year, and the lighter blue bar is from this year. And I pulled this data, I think it was December, I have a note on here. Not December, October, in the middle of October. And I have it out by school so you can kind of see where the different schools are. It's very common. We see kind of poorer attendance rates as older the kids get, and you'll see that in the next slide too. So the middle and high schools tend to have more chronic absence than the elementary schools. But you can see in every case, we've had a nice decline from last year. And what I've been told by the folks that kind of watch attendance closely at the national level is your October rates are very predictive of where the rest of your year will be. So if this holds true, we can see that we have seen a nice improvement even so far from last year to this year. So we're kind of hopeful with that. I also want to just say, I want you to use caution when comparing school to school, because we have a lot of things that play into our data, and length of day is one thing, individual student schedules is another, numbers of periods in the day may affect the total. So really looking at one school from last year to this year is the best predictor you can look at. I wouldn't be tempted to try to compare one school to another. This is similar data, just broken down for the whole supervisory union by grade level. So it's interesting, you can see sort of at the younger grades, there's a little bit of a spike in chronic absenteeism, so kindergarten, first, second, third, those sort of are a little higher, and then kind of dips down, and then it pops back up in the upper grades. And again, that kind of matches national trends. Okay. And that is all I have for you tonight. Oh, I did forget to mention, and this will be in my board report this month, we have participated for the last year in a grant through the UVM Learners School of Medicine, which has hosted a grant through the Leahy Center that gave 4 regions of the state. We had dyads, and so we were partnered with Monarch Maples, and then there were 3 other regional programs that also participated. And that grant is just wrapping up. We have a number of activities that we've done from that. One of them, you'll see both Enosburg and Richford are participated in a program that was designed by Richford Elementary called Family Fridays, and it was their pre-K and K parents were invited in once a month for some kind of joint learning, but also parent education. And then this year they extended that so that they have the pre-K K for the first hour or so, and then they invite all parents of any age student to come in for a topical conversation and education around sort of just parent resources. And so Enosburg picked up the pre-K K part this year at the elementary school, and that's gone really nicely. I think we've had some nice attendance there. I already mentioned the bi-directional consent forms that we worked on together. We meet on a monthly basis. I meet with the UVM partners and the staff from Monarch Maples once a month to kind of connect around our goals. And then we have a peer learning once a month with all of the sites. And we've been able to kind of learn from each other and learn some of the different strategies people are using to improve attendance. And then we've done some work around our protocols.
And Michelle just recently attended a conference and presented, I think it was a conference of physicians, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle.
Yeah, it was.
She was asked.
The New England Rural Health Network, I think is what it was called.
She was asked to present on this grant opportunity and what we've been doing in that partnership with. I want to say Mousetrap, but it's not. Monarch Maples. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Morgan, you're up.
All right, there's nothing other than the budget that I need you for this month. Everything else was informational, so we will dive right into this, which is your first look at expenses for FY '27. Go to the next one. We discussed the enrollment trends last month, so this is in the slide deck that you got by email today, but we won't spend any more time on it tonight unless there are questions. We are your second board meeting, still on target, hopefully to finalize your budget on January 13th. December 1st is when the December 1 letter comes out, and that's the letter that really provides us with the information we need to start predicting where tax rates are gonna end up. So at your December meeting, we will go over expenses again, go over some of your anticipated revenue, which for you all is primarily high school tuition, from folks like me in our town. And then take the numbers from the December 1 letter and give you an estimate on where tax rates will end up. Center this, as always, on the board goals that were set by the SU board. Covered that last month. This page will be in your budget book, and it's something that we will continue to tweak as we get more information and as you all make decisions in terms of what you want to include in the budget. I think the thing that I would kind of call your attention to right now is this, is the increase in health insurance. So we're anticipating premium increases of 7.3%. In terms of dollar amounts for your budget right now, I'm looking at just under $500,000. That is both the increase in the premiums, but also changes that people have made in terms of their health insurance plans. We are going into open enrollment right now, and so we will know over the next 6 weeks where people are moving in terms of plans. You may get lucky on that and have people coming off your plan. More likely than not, you're not going to get lucky, and people will be coming on based on some of the changes that are happening nationwide, which I know Lynn is going to talk about in her part of the presentation, but also as the young teachers that we have hired start to fall off their parents' plans, we tend to see them coming on your insurance, or if we know that people are planning on having a kid and moving from a two-person to a family plan. So we will incorporate that. Again, just to remind you, we'll go over the staffing, but it's a reduction of 8.5 FTEs budget to budget. Not all of those positions are currently filled, and that also includes us moving 2.5 people in from your federal funding to the local budget to try to protect those positions as we head into even more uncertain waters at the federal level. Staffing changes again briefly, no changes from what we contemplated last month in Enosburg Elementary, bringing in one position from federal funding and reducing one paraeducator from the budget. At Richford Elementary, reducing 2 paraeducators out of the local budget. Enosburg High School is where we see the most movement, bringing in a family engagement coordinator who's currently paid out of federal funds, a reduction of just over 5 FTE of teachers kind of scattered throughout the budget. And again, most of those are positions that we've not filled this year. And then the reduction of 1 admin assistant who had been tied specifically to the middle school in the past. And that's again a position that we've not filled this year. Richford High School, a drop there as well of just over 1 person, a lot more movement, increase in intervention, small reduction in time in the library, and then bringing half-time interventionist in from federal grants, along with some other movements. And at Cold Hollow, no changes budget to budget from last year.
Can I just ask a question about that one?
Yep.
Is the lab assistant in there?
The lab assistant, it would be grant funded. It's under the
That's
Perkins
right.
grant.
Perkins.
So this full FTE report is in the documents that I emailed you again today, and it's just lists by position, by school, and by kind of general budget category where those positions are. So you can look at that at your leisure and reach out if you have any questions. The first look at the budget detail also went out to you by email. I think this is about 24 pages. We won't spend any time at this level of granularity tonight unless you've already got questions. But you can bring them in December, or I'm happy to answer them offline. As you know, as we've discussed in the past, most of the money that we spend in your budget is on your people, and so a lot of this won't be interesting to you as we try to figure out what we're going to spend on health insurance, dental, workers' comp. It really comes down to what we're doing in terms of those FTEs when we make our plan for next year. The budget overview will be in your town book as well. This is your first look at it sort of on the big category basis. What you can see here, some of the big movement is right now we're anticipating an overall reduction in the SU assessment, but we're kind of moving how we're billing it out to town. So we're pulling out transportation as a separate line item, which we need to do because when the state sets your tuition rates, it needs a way to pull transportation out separately. So that was the big driver for that change. You'll see that your direct instruction line is up even with those position cuts. Part of the reason for that is that big increase in health insurance, and we know that that gets spread across your budget, but it's mostly most of your people are in that direct instruction line. The good news on this is overall the budget is up about 1.5%, which is less than we've seen in the past. And again, that's really due to those staffing changes. What I'm hearing today is that education spending, so it's not the amount you spend, but the amount you need from the state and from property taxes, for the December 1 letter is going to be somewhere around 6%. I don't think that number's final yet, but that's kind of the rumor that we're hearing. That's obviously higher than what we're anticipating, but I think it is lower than it's been in the last couple of years. I think a big part of that is health insurance coming in only at 7% instead of 17%. And I think also 2 years ago, people are still remembering budget defeats, and so are budgeting a little more conservatively. Any questions on that before we kind of start jumping into details? The next two charts are ones that you've seen in the past. This one, what we do is really trying to break up that big budget to break it out into the different large categories of how we spend the money. So direct instruction, that section in green, is about half. Student support or supportive instruction is really the second half of that. The next slide shows the same budget, but this is by what we buy, so a different way of looking at it. 3/4 in red is what we spend on your staff. So that's really what drives this budget. The next section in blue is professional services, and that big chunk of light blue is really the services that you're getting from the supervisory union. So a lot of that is primarily people. It's your special educators, it's your food service workers, it's that transportation assessment that we talked about. And then that little tiny section in green is what we spend on stuff. So that's supplies, including the electric bill, the fuel bills, the wood chip, and then the instructional supplies that go into classrooms. So I think this is a useful one that we use in budget presentations, just to remind people that if there is a need because of what you see for tax rates or budget defeats, and we need to come back and we need to move this budget in a big way, it's really about people and positions. The education fund, I believe we went over these next two slides last month as well. Briefly, this one shows for this current year where tax money comes to support the budget. So about a quarter of the money that we get from the state is from homestead property tax. About a third is non-homestead, and about another third is other sources, and that's largely rooms and meals tax, Medicaid, lottery transfer, things like that. The next slide, which I think we went over last month as well, and it's in your packet. This is just breaking it up by town, and certainly on the NMV side, there's a perception that there's a lot more money that is raised in the town from property tax than is spent in the town on the school system. And what this shows for both NMV and for the ER side is that we actually spend significantly more in our budgets than we're raising locally. So homeowners, second homeowners from other towns are actually contributing to the state fund, and we're drawing down from that on top of the money that's not tied to a specific town. Rooms and meals tax, Medicaid, lottery. This chart we've gone over as well. This is spending per pupil for the current year. Enosburg-Richford is that blue line closest to the bottom. I would say if we come in somewhere around that 1.5%, and the average for the state is somewhere around 6%, that spread is going to get bigger and we're going to fall farther. I've also included some information in your slide deck. This will also be in the town book as well around the capital reserve fund and what we have. We will have a fund balance that we'll be discussing next month, and we'll decide what to do with that. Typically in the past, we've said we'll put half of it to buying down tax rates, and we'll ask the voters to put half of it into a capital reserve fund for projects like the snack shack or the boiler project that we just did at Richford High School. We will tackle that next month when we start to see where the tax rates are ending. We also, given the merger discussions, need to keep that in mind and whether it makes sense to have money on the books when we may be, that may be our dowry going into a marriage 2 years from now, and whether that's a good idea or not. I think that's it for tonight, kind of speed round. Again, moving this budget, and I'm certainly not suggesting that you cut anything, but moving it significantly is a discussion around staffing. So any questions on that? And again, you all have my email if there's things that come up specifically in the next 4 weeks. Next month's meeting will be a little bit longer because we'll really dig into what we think we're going to tell people are the projected tax rates. We can look at impacts on different valued houses and also discuss what moving X dollars in from that fund balance into the capital reserve fund would do to that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lynn?
Okay. I have some informational new hires, so none of these are actionable, but just to let you know, Amanda Little will be coaching 5-6 girls basketball at Enosburg Elementary, Richford Junior Senior High School, Jared Goss, JV boys basketball, David Turner, middle school boys basketball, Morgan McAllister, assistant varsity girls basketball. We had one resignation this month, Rain Belays, evening custodian at Enosburg Falls Middle High School. We have some current open positions. So actually we have another person that we've hired, and this didn't make it on because it was late. We have hired someone, can't remember the name, to be a couple, I'll report this next month, but we had an open lab assistant position at Cold Hollow.
Oh, Jason Guild.
Jason Guild will be doing that 2 days per week. So that has been filled. I took it off the open positions, but we didn't get Jason in there. You'll see that next
That was a
month.
grant funded, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
through Perkins. So Enosburg Elementary, we still have an open school nurse position. We, in a paraeducator position, just a little update on the school nurse position. We had a long-term sub in place at Enosburg Elementary to start the year because the previous school nurse, we allowed her to break the contract at Enosburg Elementary to take the health educator position at Cold Hollow, medical careers educator. And we had a long-term sub who unfortunately passed away and left us. We had to scramble a little bit to get coverage for the nurse. So we have a couple of nurses, both Douglas Kane from Richford Elementary and Ashley Mercy from Bakersfield, who had spent some time there working some of those days. And now I'm pleased to say that we have a longer term sub while we continue to look for a permanent sub, Christine Greenwood, who is working just now at Enosburg Elementary, still being supported by those other two nurses. I will also say that Tanya Jarvis at Enosburg Middle High School is also brand new, and she has had a heavier lift as a result of this as well. So we're hoping that by having a better, more solid plan, she can focus her effort on the middle high school and not have to support as much at the elementary school. We have some current open positions at Enosburg Middle High School. Some of these have been there a while, but we're gonna keep them on there because we're hopeful, right, Anthony?
Yes, we are.
Middle school, we would love to find a literacy interventionist. We would also like to find a middle school boys basketball coach, a middle school baseball coach. The guidance director position has been very difficult to fill. That's been vacant. I think this is the third or fourth year now. We're looking for JV baseball, a high school paraeducator, and an evening custodian. Richford Junior Senior High School, we're looking for a paraeducator, a middle school girls basketball coach, and a varsity baseball coach. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some state and federal impacts. So back to the dowry that Morgan was talking about. We'll talk about what's happening with statewide district consolidation work. So we have the task force, the redistricting task force that has been charged under Act 73 with producing up to 3 maps to make a recommendation to the legislature about what the new districts should look like under this plan. They have 1 meeting left, and I think it is on Thursday of this week. They had a meeting on the 10th of November, and at that time they went into the meeting with 3 options on the table, and they left the meeting with really 1 option remaining on the table. So I'm going to talk briefly about how that went. So I'll go down a little bit, Courtney, to this first map. So if you click on that, I think that, does the whole visual come up?
Yeah.
It might not. It's okay. You've seen a similar map before. It's the state of Vermont in what you see there, the way that is divided right now, is very closely tied to the current Vermont superintendent region with a couple of slight tweaks, I believe. So what this map proposes is, under this proposal, they're not talking about governance. They're talking about creating another layer, a cooperative education service area. So it would be that each of these regions would try to share some resources, and they would, this is typically referred to as a BOCES, a Board of
Cooperative Education
Thank you.
Services.
At Cooperative Education Services. And it's common in some other states. Vermont has not had it yet. We have 1 BOCES currently that is relatively new in the southern part of the state. So this proposes that Vermont would then have 5 BOCES, and we would try to streamline some of what we're doing. Alternative programs, transportation, special ed services, a variety of things like that, maybe food services, things that in theory you could do more affordably when your buying power would be greater by having this collaborative. So with this map, I didn't mean to make that small and I don't know how to, okay, there we go. I try not to touch it, it does funny things. So with this map, the committee voted to support moving this map forward in a vote of 8-3. So this is what they're gonna push forward. At this point, this is what they're pushing forward as a recommendation to the legislature. The problem with this map is it doesn't contain any district mergers, which was part of the charge of Act 73. And it recommends merging some certain districts with fewer than 500 students. What they're recommending with this is that the mergers would happen more organically and in a volunteer way, that the expectation would be that systems are talking to other systems and are working towards voluntary mergers within the communities. And really centering that around comprehensive high school districts. And I believe, I'm losing track a little bit on which board I've communicated with. I believe I talked to you about the comprehensive high school model last month. Did I do that at this board? No, I don't think so, because the meeting happened after, okay. So in the comprehensive high school model, and I wish that map was on there, but I didn't put that map in this time. They came up with a list of 20 comprehensive high schools in the state of Vermont. One of them would be Enosburg High School, and there are visuals which if this goes anywhere from here, I would bring it back next time. But their theory is that you could make larger regional high schools, and they were looking at travel distances, and they knew in that plan that they would need construction aid because they were projecting 800 and some odd students for Enosburg High School. There were 20 on there, and then there were, I think, 4 or 5 potential other regional high schools. So it wasn't clear if that meant that there would be no other high schools, or if it was that they were going to incentivize the regional high school model.
How many high schools, I'm sorry, Lynn, but how many high schools are there currently? Because you said down to 20.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I know there's about 300 schools, but I don't know what the breakdown is between each of the grade levels. So the idea behind the comprehensive high school, I think, is it's a little tagged into the cooperative education service area. Their hope is that they would incentivize some of that work to get to comprehensive high schools through the BOCES model. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So there was another map that they talked about, and that was the CTE map. And in the CTE map, it contained both districts and supervisory unions. So you could see us, we're the Northwest Area District, and if you look closely at that, it is, that one actually ended up being all of Franklin County. For a period of time, they were going to break apart BFA Fairfax, break apart that district, and Alberg was in that at one point as well. But in this map, in the final proposal, they would have ended up with 7 districts, and we would have been a district, so no longer a choice, like an outside take those dollars and go anywhere you want choice district. So the new board likely would have allowed for choice from within the district, but you wouldn't have been able to take the dollars outside of the district, which would have been a shift for the NMV. So the issue, this map was voted down by the committee in a 3-8 vote, and the perception when looking at this map is that it was drawn primarily to benefit some of the private schools. So those 7 supervisory unions, I said there were 7 districts and 7 supervisory unions. The location of the supervisory unions that they were going to keep kind of essentially the way they are now is where some of the larger private schools currently exist. So it would have opened up choice to more students in those areas. This bill is strongly this map is likely going to be something that the Senate looks at again, because this task force isn't making decisions. This task force is just making a recommendation to the legislature. So I think Morgan and I both believe that this map will resurface, because the chair of the Senate Education Committee, no, he is not the chair. He's on Senate Finance. He is the one that proposed this, so it will likely find its way back into the Senate. So where we are now is there's a little bit of chaos that, people are wondering what's gonna happen next, because if they push forward only the BOCES model, it doesn't really meet what Act 73 set that task force out to do. So there are quite a number of articles out there. You're probably hearing about it on the news and seeing it in your feed. So it'll be a really interesting meeting on Thursday. I'll look forward to hearing how that goes. In terms of federal impact, I had reported to you previously with some of the federal impacts, what we were worried about. One was around food service. So the government is in a different place now. There's a big piece that we're worried about. So when Morgan was talking about what our projected number is related to health insurance, we're relieved that what we learned from our health insurance company is that we're looking at 7-point-something%, which is much lower than what it's been. But going into open enrollment, we're nervous that we may see some significant shifts from people who are currently connected to the Vermont Health Connect. And they're about to get information and that people are currently getting information that is scary about what it's going to do to their monthly bills. We actually had someone in our office tonight, just to give you a tangible example. They were paying $350 a month for their health insurance, and they just learned that their premium was going to shift to $2,500 a month. So that person was coming on to our health plan. So one of my thoughts as we look at this budget is we will know more as we get through December. I think open enrollment ends, Morgan, on end of December, is that right? Mm-hmm. So before you finalize that last number, we'll have a better idea, but I do have a worry that we have some people that are maybe going to have to make a shift because of the cost shift that's about to hit them personally. So we may see more people taking our health insurance plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to give you a legal update, and this is about a recent Supreme Court ruling from the summer. This board hasn't seen as much from the community about this, but our other district board has. So there was a Supreme Court ruling, it's Mahmood versus Taylor. And in this case, the premise of it is that parents in the case wanted the ability to opt out of anything in the curriculum that substantially interfered with their family's sincerely held religious beliefs. And so, in essence, any topics that were related to LGBTQ plus students. So we worked with our legal counsel because I don't know if you've ever read a Supreme Court ruling, but it is not the easiest to interpret. So we spent some time trying to unpack it and understand what does this mean for us and what does this not mean for us. So this legal interpretation was through our legal counsel. So the citation from the ruling, I'm gonna read pieces of this because I want to get it right. It's still difficult to communicate about this. So what it's saying is that should the curriculum material more than merely conflict with beliefs or constitute exposure to objectionable ideas or lessons about mutual respect, but rather represent clear instruction by individual authority figures to students in that grade K through 5 band about values in a way that substantially interferes with families' sincerely held beliefs. So when I read that and I unpack that, it is not about exposure to books and texts that have characters that represent our LGBTQ plus community, But what they're talking about is if you're teaching a value in a singular way, like this is the, instead of creating like there are multiple perspectives, instead of that saying like this is right and you are wrong, we cannot do that. That is clear. So in the Mahmoud Taylor case, the request was about opt-out. So some families in our supervisory union have asked to opt out of LGBTQ plus related texts and surveys. So there's a Vermont law on top of this Supreme Court law, and we have to follow both. So the Vermont law expressly protects and preserves the right to equal access for our LGBTQ plus persons to Vermont public schools and to the accommodations within. Therefore, we will continue to circulate and conduct surveys that acknowledge and serve our LGBTQ plus school members and use material which acknowledges them as members of equal standing within Vermont schools as explicitly recognized by Vermont law. So our legal counsel disputes that the suggestion in this Mahmoud Taylor case in any way addresses or compels an opportunity for opt-out for the handling of those materials here in Vermont. It's specific to that case at this time. So at this time, it only applies to the parties in the case. So in FNESU, we heard the concerns and the complaints of the people who brought this to us. And our commitment is to review the curriculum text and materials in advance of their use by teachers. And should at any point our review reveal that the content intended for use in instruction within our K through 5 classes would require direct instructions of viewpoints that would substantially interfere with a family's constitutional right to direct their child's religious instruction, parents would be provided advance notice in those materials and provided an opportunity to opt out. That again is about providing a singular viewpoint, a right and a wrong, and trying to use that power of the person in the classroom to persuade that this is the only viewpoint. And we're trying hard not to do that. That shouldn't be what we're doing. We should be teaching kids to be critical thinkers and to, be able to navigate and understand differences in people. So that's kind of the update there. I'm going to assume that might not be as clear as it could have been. Tried my best to break it down as simply as I could. Are there questions about that? There's also okay.
Is there specific communication that has gone out to families and parents related to this, or is it just addressed when, I guess, a hand is raised from a parent or community member?
So for right now, it has only been in response to families that have brought forward opt-out requests.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So there's also been some things that have been misinterpreted on social media that I wanted to address. There has been a reference repeatedly online about a pride assembly that was held in one of our pre-K through 8 elementary schools. And I want to clear the air on that because I think that it's been growing and I think it's being portrayed as something that it really wasn't. So this has to do with, I'll name the school, it's being named on social media, Berkshire Elementary. This was not a pride assembly, this was a school-wide end-of-the-year assembly. This happened on June 7th in 2023, so 3 school years ago, and it actually was before the current principal was even there. At the end of the school-wide assembly, it was in June, that one teacher gave a 1-minute, 26-second Pride History Month, like a summary. June is Pride History Month, and this is how it came to be, and talked about the riots and how President Clinton had deemed June Pride Month, Pride History Month. So the lesson was really about history. There was nothing in it that was trying to push an agenda. It was historical in nature. I had a conversation at that time with the leader about the age level of the students that were there and whether or not like the content was, I've seen the transcript of it, there's nothing that I see that's objectionable. But the age level, the younger kids didn't really have an entry point to understand what they were talking about. So we just talked about that time, maybe that could have been for the middle school. And the K through 4 could have left, or the K through 5 could have left. So I just wanted to name that because I just think it's being portrayed in a way that it, one, has just happened, and two, that it was an assembly related to Pride, and that's not what it was. There's also been concerns about non-uniformity with our staff signature lines and advocacy in some of the links that people were putting in their signature lines. So some of the links about if, you need support, click here, and it would bring people to other organizations. I don't believe there was any ill intent by our staff members, but I think people were tracking those organizations and looking at what other organizations were those organizations connected to, and they were portraying that maybe was advocacy in a singular direction. So we have a standard expectation now for signature lines that all principals all staff has been informed, and I know the principals have spoken with their staff as well to make sure that everybody has that uniform expectation about signature lines. So I just wanted to give that update because I know that that's brewing around in the community. Any questions about that? So our last meeting, I introduced, I think the last couple of meetings, the district quality standards. Just as a quick review, Vermont has education quality standards that we've had for quite some time. Those have been revised and they're brand new now, July 1, 2025. So we're doing a lot of work. That's a lot of what Michelle Irish is holding, is making sure that we are on track in terms of all of those education quality standards. The Agency of Education, let me back up. The EQS, the Education Quality Standards, are written by the State Board of Education. And it is them who is responsible for EQS. The DQS, those were standards that they began, development of those began under former Secretary Dan French, and they have now been quasi-finalized. This year is a beta test, so we have to do a self-assessment. We will not get data back about where we are as a system, but we have to report out where we are with all three boards. These are brand new standards, so there's no expectation that we would be proficient because these are indicators that we really hadn't seen until this year. So we sent a self-assessment out to board members, and we took a look at these. Courtney and I looked at the data, and I did check in with more briefly to let you know where we were falling in each of those. So what you see with the numerical indicator is each of those represents an indicator in that rubric, and so we put that indicator in the proficiency column. So these are all due on Thursday, so we've done it for NMV. This is the ERU DQS self-assessment, and we'll be doing the SU self-assessment tomorrow night. So I'll submit all of that data, and then Morton and I will look at this, and for this board, we'll look at, okay, here are the ones we know we're already proficient in, which are the ones that we're either beginning or approaching do we want to set as a goal or target for next year, and then we'll work towards that. It's not reasonable to say that we're going to move everything to proficient in 1 year. That's all we'd be doing. So we'll take some steps towards moving that to proficiency. Next year this is only a portion of the DQS standards. We'll have to assess all of them next year, and the results of that survey will be released publicly, school district by school district. Any questions on the DQS piece? Okay. Let me just say at the start of this, I expected to bring you academic proficiency data, and after a conversation yesterday and some re-looking at the data today, I was not confident that it was 100% accurate, so I want to recheck that before I bring it back to you. So I've dumped that part of this, but I will give you some of the other data I had, and I'll bring the academic data back in December. So this is just another way to look at our enrollment data across all of our schools. Another piece of data that we track is the experience level of teachers in each of our schools across the supervisory union. So this is important because we know the research is very clear that the largest indicator of students' success academically has to do with the quality of first instruction they're getting from their teacher. So our teachers matter significantly in terms of student proficiency. So what we track is if they're brand new, they're in their first year their first year, they're in the pink. Those are our brand new teachers. If they're in years 2 or 3, that's yellow. In years 4 or 5, that's green. And veteran is 6 or more years. So you can see that we do have, in most schools, the majority of the teachers are veteran or they've been there 4 or 5 years. We have some spots where we've seen a little more turnover, and we have a higher percentage of teachers in that like brand new to 3 years experience. So this is one of the reasons that we have we're using the academic coaching model. So we have our instructional coaches that push in to support especially our new teachers and really trying to bring them up to a place where they are being effective in the classroom. So any questions on this data? We also track data around provisional and emergency licensed teachers. So let me just start with a definition before we get into the data. So we have teachers, I think we've been clear, I've reported about this many times, that we have some positions that we advertise that we get no candidates for that are licensed and have gone through an academic training program. So we have a mechanism, it's called an emergency license, where we could take someone with a bachelor's degree and give them a 1-year license and start training them to be a teacher while they're teaching. So they have that opportunity for the first year. In the second and third year, they would move to a provisional license. They have that for 2 years. They're working on getting their degree for those 3 years. And then once they get the degree and they're recommended for licensure, they get the full educator license. So all of those are allowable. It is not ideal to have a high number of emergency and provisional licenses, and yet that is where we are in terms of hiring. So we've been tracking this data for years, and you can see that we have, for this school year, 75% of our educators are working under the appropriate educator license, 23% are working under a provisional, and 2% are under an emergency. So just another thing to tease out of this, provisional doesn't always mean new. It might mean that you are a middle school teacher, but you're teaching a 4th grade group something. We have to get those people a provisional license for elementary. So they might be, a veteran teacher, but they're teaching in a new grade level or a new content. So you might be a science teacher who we have a block that we need to fill to teach Algebra 1. So you may be teaching Algebra 1, so you can have a provisional for a different content as well. So I'll just look, I won't go through all the data points, but 25% this year. Last year we were at 22% that were provisional or emergency. The year before that we were 28. Our highest year we were at 30 in 22-23 and 20% in 21-22. And then the year after, one of the COVID years, we were at 12 and then 13 when we started tracking in 19-20. So we have seen a difference, and I know from my time as an administrator when I first began, it was nothing to get 100 candidates for an elementary position or a social studies position too, and now I think our most common numbers are 0 to 3. So any questions on that? I'll go quickly through this because we talked about it a little at the last month's meeting, but I didn't go into any detail because I think it had just happened. So Secretary Saunders and Chief Academic Officer Aaron Davis visited FNESU. Courtney, can you go back up just for a minute to the POL? We had the visit with them. They wanted to learn more about what we're doing here in FNESU, and they were looking at our Portrait of a Learner, and we had the opportunity to spend some time with them both at Richford High School and at Richford Elementary School. We had a great conversation with them about the growing momentum nationwide. If you could go down, Cor. The growing momentum related to the skills and the changing demands of the workforce, and we're able to help them see the connections to some of the work that's happening across the country and some of the research that's behind the work we're doing in FNESU. So we're able to share all of that with them. There's some pictures here that are amazing. Kelly had some 4th and 5th graders, or were they all 5th graders?
No, 4th and 5th.
4th and 5th graders who actually presented. You could see at the table, the lady on the left with the blonde hair is Zoe, and the lady across from her with the black and white shirt is Aaron Davis. And this was not adults in the room leading. These were 4th and 5th graders that were leading, and they were talking about what's special about their school and what they're doing with Leader in Me and the goals that they have. These were other 4th and 5th graders that were sharing something a little bit different about what they're doing at Richford Elementary School. I wish I had taken pictures at Richford High School because we had a really positive experience, and I just didn't think to get my camera out, where Aaron and Zoe were able to have conversations with Beth, with a group of teachers that was really impactful, and students who came in and talked about their experience, also very impactful. We have a follow-up scheduled with them. They have some other questions, and I know Beth's going to be a part of that follow-up as well. Don't think it's been scheduled yet, but we're working on it. We received an Educate and Innovate Grant Award. You might have talked about this last time. It didn't have the picture to show everybody. I think that this team was a little surprised. They didn't know that this was maybe a week later from when Zoe visited the first time. I don't think anybody at the high school knew that
We didn't know Zoe was coming.
Right. So I think people scurried. They were like, the secretary is here. But this is, one of the things we do really well is hustle for grant funding here as a really low spending district, and this is another example of that. So this was $15,000 that is earmarked to do some really cool things. A lot of the work, you can read the letter, it's in the report. It's a lot of STEM materials and 3D printers and things like that the
CNC,
what is it?
CNC machine.
Can you decode that for us?
It's like a 3D
cutter,
printer.
right?
Yep, cutter. Yep, along with our physics program. Yeah.
It's a what?
It's like a router cutter table.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you program all of it, right, to be able to do it. So it also is going to benefit that first robotics program. So this was a grant that NMV got last year, and then we were able to apply for it again through your district. So we were able to get it, and there were 2 recipients last year, 2 recipients this year. We were lucky that we were able to benefit from it within FNESU both years. I think they're expanding it next year. I think I've heard that they're 4.
Yeah, two
Two.
sets of 2. Yeah, 2.
Yeah.
4 total for the year.
So that's
All
really
two
exciting.
soaring.
And the last thing I have for you tonight is a request from Northwest Access. This is something that we get each year. We appreciate our partners at Northwest Access for making our board meetings accessible to our community, and actually to some of our staff members sometimes too, to be able to participate remotely or to be able to watch it after the fact. So I know that costs are increasing for everybody. And so Northwest Access, I know funding is challenging. Some of the traditional funding streams for places like Northwest Access are no longer there. So they have made a request to the board to consider contributing to the annual cost of covering the Enosburg-Richford district meetings at $2,080. So there is, in the slideshow, is the letter, Courtney, do they have the slideshow yet?
Yeah, it's in the agenda.
And there's a letter that's going around.
Any questions on that? Okay, entertain a motion to approve that.
You're looking for the full amount?
For the 2,000, yes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Devin made the motion. Akua?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Rachel's on
Thank you.
that. And anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, principal's report. Kelly, anything else?
Nope, everything's informational.
No?
All informational, a highlight from the last month is that I attended the strategic planning session in Killington from the AOE, and 2 of my students were invited to go, both from the public speaking class. Liz Erickson encouraged them to apply, and they were accepted. They were one of, I think, 7 or 8 kids from around the state that were there, and received very positive feedback on how they represented us. Tristan Whitestone and Kenzie Marcy were the 2 students that attended, and I received accolades from other school districts about their representation.
Oh, nice. Jen?
All informational, I will just highlight that we are currently doing our student-led conferences, and typically you do the STAR testing 3 times a year. We do it a little bit more frequently, and that's one of the points. The kids are really excited to show their parents the growth, the charts that they have. So it's been a really good experience.
Anthony?
Mine's all informational as well. We've had a busy couple weeks. The building's been kind of alive with different events going on, and we had a great student-led conference couple nights, a lot of participation. Once Upon a Mattress was the show that was just this past weekend. We had teams in the state playoffs, go to the finals, had lots of rallies around that. So the building's just been alive with a lot of different events and things going on, and it's been great. And we had our student elections, so we now have our executive branch of our government set, and that executive branch is now working with a couple teachers to develop what the exhibition of learning will look like. So it's going to have a lot of student voice driving what Expo is going to look like coming up.
You have Nate online.
Is Nate online? Nate?
Yeah, the only thing to highlight, we just had our student-led conferences. We had almost 100% participation with our first-year students. And then Thursday night, 5:30 is our meal for our program advisory board members, and 6 to 7 are our program advisory board meetings. So if you're in the neighborhood and you want to just come over and be a part of that, you guys are always more than welcome. Just jump into any program you feel like you want to, and open invite. So that's Thursday night, 6 to 7.
Thanks. Okay, any board business from any board members? Okay, anything else, Lynn? You have?
No.
Okay. So our next meeting is December 9th at Cold Hollow, and if there's nothing else, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Devin made the motion to adjourn. Kua?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Good night, everybody.